Hi, I'm Ariana. Nice to meet you, DW.
Nice to meet you.
So this movie has already made its festival rounds. It was at TIFF, it was at South by Southwest. How does it feel now that it's about to be at theaters? Do you feel like it being at festivals prepared you more? Are you more excited? Like, what's the vibes right now?
I'm really excited. Festivals are great. I love them. I love, diving in with the film community. And also TIFF is just such like an open festival for all film lovers to participate in. So I think, we kind of got a dose of like what the audience is, how they're going to react to the film. But this is the real time, having a theatrical release across, North America, May 31st. It's just super exciting. I'm excited for all the cheerleaders to finally see the film. I think that's the exciting part.
Did you do cheerleading in high school?
I didn't. I surprisingly wore a cheerleading uniform when I DJ'd and played drums in the Toronto underground scene. So that was kind of my like weird foray into cheerleading, or like kind of knowing, obviously seeing iconic films like Bring It On. But I remember seeing just like this viral video of somebody kind of stretching during cheer and how difficult it looked and all the stress and pressure that's put on the body, and then hearing that the concussion rates for cheerleaders are like above football or something like that. And I was like, oh wow, like what we're kind of getting from cheerleading, the brand is very different from training and practices and like everything that's put into that sport. I was like, oh, I want to highlight how badass these athletes are.
Yeah, speaking of cheerleading, this felt like a very different cheerleading movie. I feel like the typical cheerleading part doesn't really come in to the very end when they're at the competition.
Yeah.
Why did you decide to approach that in a different way?
Yeah, I really wanted to show all the sweat, all the broken bones, all the concussions, like all the energy that kind of goes in to that one moment of performance, because that's what it all builds up to. And then we all see, the sparkles and the bows and the makeup, and we're just like, okay, yeah, that's cheerleading. It's like, oh no, it's the 8 months before. Like the 8 months before, when you're dropping bodies who are your friends, and you're pounding calories because you're burning them off so quickly. That's the aspect of the sport that really intrigued me.
Yeah, I feel like usually films about cheerleading or films mostly about women in sports usually show like very unhealthy eating habits or focus on disordered eating, but that's not highlighted in this film at all. Was that purposeful as well, that they don't have a bad relationship with food?
Correct. That was very important for me to make sure that these are healthy, like loving food, young women. Even if you just look in general, like beyond the athletic part of film and television, if you look in the background and you see like a man and a woman sitting down to eat and like somebody serving them, it's a burger in front of the man and it's a salad in front of the woman every single time. And I'm just like, that is not how people eat. That's not how young women eat. When I was a teenager, I'd be pounding like pizza and candy and stuff like that. And even going to, because we had a cheer squad that we would go and like hang out with and just kind of try to get like a vibe of, what it was like to be a cheerleader. And they would come in like holding McDonald's bags, pounding a burger, and then flipping their shoes, getting on the mat and going, because they're burning so much off. When you have a 2 hour practice, 4 hour practice, sometimes they have all day practices. Like that's wild. And it was so important for me to show young women just like loving and enjoying food.
Yes, yes. I really liked that as well. We also see that the team is very diverse as well, body wise, racially. Was that, I'm assuming that was a conscious decision as well.
Yes, that was very conscious. I feel like we've seen the white cheer films. They've made their mark, but that's not what all cheer teams look like. And the cheer squad that we've actually worked with, Cheer Fusion, they're in Brampton. They're the only Black owned cheer team in all of Canada. So that was the team that we ended up kind of getting paired with and have been working with for 6 years. And so they also really influenced me in terms of making sure like everybody was represented on screen, and showing different body types, because not all cheerleaders are like stick thin. They're muscly.
Mhm.
especially when you're a base or a backspot, like you need the body to be able to put up the flyer. I think that's also something people usually focus it on is you focus on the girl going up in the air, but I'm like, it's crazier when you're the person underneath them catching them and putting your body on the line. And that's why the position of backspot was so intriguing to me.
Yes. Why did you decide that this film was going to be your directorial debut for a feature length film?
It just has so many elements that I love. And also, it's the film I wanted to see as a teenager. I wanted to see a kick-ass cheer film that like highlights women as just athletes, not as female athletes, just as athletes. Great soundtrack, uh, queerness, Evan Rachel Wood. Like it's the movie I would have been like freaking out over as a teenager. There's lightness, there's fun, there's darkness, there's anxiety. I tried to make sure it was like a full serving of like all the different emotions when approaching this.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned Evan Rachel Wood because I feel like 13 was like my first independent movie and how
Yeah,
I
same.
really got into them. How did Evan Rachel Wood come about being a part of this movie?
Yeah, I mean, working with Elliot Page and Page Boy, once we had like a script we were really happy with, they're like, all right, Coach Eileen, give us your top 5 dream actors, dream big. We won't get any of them. We'll just go to general casting, but we're gonna swing big. And so number one, Evan Rachel Wood, because of course. And then hearing back from her team that they thought it would be a great fit, and she really responded well to the material. Getting on a Zoom with her and just being able to like chat about the character and the film, she ended up kind of saying that this film reminded her of 13, and that when she was doing that film, Holly Hunter was the big name and took a shot on, Catherine Hardwicke, her directorial debut, and Evan. And she's like, I want to pay that forward. And I want to be that for this. And so it was very difficult during that Zoom to like keep a straight face and be like, is this real life?
The most classic of classic. I would watch that like every day. I
Yeah.
love that
Yeah.
movie so much.
So good.
Speaking of music, um, at first I was like, "No, they're not singing that," because like even though it was nominated for a Tony, like I'm the only one that knows this musical. Why were they singing "Oh My God, You Guys" from Legally Blonde the musical twice?
Well, I used to be an usher at a theater, and I remember when Legally Blonde came through and all the ushers were just like, oh, another like movie remake. This is gonna be awful. And it was the most addictive, best show we'd ever seen. We'd be fighting each other to like be in, seating people in the theaters. We just watch it. It was so incredible. And so, it's one of my favorite musicals. And I was like, what's a great way to show how geeky these characters are and to show how vulnerable they are? And I was like, well, theater nerds, that would kind of get that point across. And so I was like, let's throw on, oh my God, you guys. And we were lucky enough to get it for the film. And Kudakwashe and Devery Jacobs also happened to be big musical theater nerds as well. So there was no acting required for that scene. That's just them in their full happiness.
Yeah, I was like, that such is it really can't be that much of a deep cut because it's always on Scooter. It was nominated for a Tony. But like when I heard it, I'm like, why is this so familiar? I'm like, oh my God, you guys, it's oh my God, you guys. I was so excited. Like I love that musical. But as a DJ, how did you integrate music into the movie?
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking about music as we were writing the script about, where things could go. And then as we were kind of getting closer, even just kind of like knowing for when Riley's running out of her car to go pick up her girlfriend Amanda and get popcorn, I was like, okay, I want to do that in a oneer. And I was like, and I know the song I want. So I kind of put a clock on our Steadicam op being like, this is a 30-second shot because I know the beat's going to drop as soon as they take off in the car. So just kind of thinking through those moments. Um, And then obviously Prodigy Thunder. Like I kind of named the Thunderhawks Thunder because I really wanted the Prodigy in the film. I remember hearing the Prodigy for the first time in Charlie's Angels when they're like all in the alley, like kicking ass. And I was like, what an empowering moment. And so I kind of wrote them a letter being like, I'm a huge fan and like I want to empower cheerleaders and them kicking ass the way that moment in Charlie's Angels did and would love to include this track. So and they said yes, and it was like my favorite montage to shoot and cut. It was so incredible. But yeah, always just thinking about what's gonna really like raise the stakes, because music and the visuals really need to kind of go hand in hand together.
Yeah, there's even some lyrics like "My body's not a prison, it's not a cage" that I thought was super important, and I think went along with the underlying themes of the movie as well.
Yeah, yeah, that's my track that I wrote, and so that was important. I did a lot of the music for the film. I mean, also indie budget, right? You can't afford all these incredible artists, so it was like where do I want to spend the money on these
Mhm.
great performers, and then making sure that I was being able to fill the holes and kind of create this electronic landscape.
Yes, yes. Um, Riley's relationship with Eileen, why does she look up to her so much? And why does Eileen kind of try to quell that admiration very quickly and shut it down?
Yeah, I think, working with Devery Jacobs and our writer Joanne Sarazin, Riley's someone who's looking for, a mentor, for a figure that she can model herself after. And I think she couldn't find that in her mother. Her mother keeps letting her down in many ways, and she's looking for that adult mentor. And, she kind of sees Eileen, and she's obsessed with cheerleading just as much as she is. She looks perfect from the outside, and then they find out she has an ex-wife and she's queer. And so I think that's like the big exciting moment for Riley's character to be like, oh my God, she's perfect. Like she's found the mentor that she's been searching for. Um, but with any person or character, we all have our own traumas that we've been through. And I think Eileen and Evan and I really got to work through this when chatting before the film, what Eileen has gone through. And, we kind of figured she was an out lesbian early on in her teen years. There was lots of bullying, lots of kind of trauma happened around that. She's fresh out of a divorce. She's not in a good place from a mental health standpoint. And she demands perfection. And she demands perfection from these young athletes. And she pushes them too far. So we really wanted to just play with that give and take between those two characters and how they would bounce off of each other.
Yeah. Also, Riley's relationship with her girlfriend. Why is it so important for the girlfriend to also be a part of this team? Because while her girlfriend is dedicated, it's not the same level of passion that Riley has.
Yeah, I really wanted to show a healthy queer relationship. I think, generally we see relationships that are not great on screen because it's just like easy writing.
Mhm.
So we really wanted to make sure that they were in a positive queer relationship, but that they had two different perspectives. Amanda, she has two little siblings. She probably babysits them. She has a job. She's thinking down the line. Myself and Kudakwashe, who plays Amanda, would always joke, Amanda's going to become a lawyer one day. Like she's got her shit together. But Riley, is struggling with her mental health and is very cheer focused. Everything is cheer. And I think they met in cheer. I think they obviously like came up in cheer. But for Amanda, it's something that's a fun activity to do that she's been doing since she was a little girl. But for Riley, it's absolutely everything. So that was also fun for us to play with to see how those things would bounce off of one another.
Yes. And kind of a bit of the codependence that it seems like Riley has with everyone she kind of encounters in a sense that she really can't be alone, as we see with kind of the different disorders when she is alone, what she does to herself, and how she really can't have a moment of silence in her own head, it seems.
Yeah, there's a lot going on in her head and a lot of things that she's trying to work through. But because she's a teenager, she doesn't really know what's going on, and the adults don't seem to be paying attention either. So she's just kind of struggling through it, as we see in the film.
Yes. So your relationship with Devery, you guys have this production company together, but what was it like to also be have a director actor relationship as well?
Yeah, I mean, it was fantastic. Devery Jacobs is a pro. She was an incredible number one on set. Just, as soon as she lands on set, there's such a presence to her, there's such a leadership quality, and it really raises everybody up. All the actors are better, being able to work off of her for it. She's an incredible actor and leader.
Yeah. And for your guys' production company, singular, um, what type of films do you want to do? Is it a specific goal of the types of films that you want to do? That sometimes when people have a production company, they have a vision of mind of the types of films, or is it comes, this is something that we have in mind and something that we like?
Yeah, I mean, we're kind of looking for everything, but we're specifically really looking to uplift Indigenous voices, queer voices, trans voices, Black voices, just voices we don't feel like we hear enough from. Like those are the creators and storytellers we're curious to collaborate with.
Yes. Um, with all movies and TV shows, anytime you're a director, unfortunately, something has to go on the cutting room floor. What's a scene that you really wish could have been squeezed in, but just didn't make sense for the movie that you put out?
Yeah, I mean, I think like 95% of everything is in there. I think we only ended up cutting 2 scenes, which is kind of crazy. One of those scenes was between Shannyn Sossamon and Devery Jacobs. And there was just like, it was just like a confrontational scene. I think that kind of leapt off before Riley ends up running to the club. There was like a little fight between them, but we just feel like it just wasn't working
Yeah.
in the film. So we thought it was better on the cutting room floor.
Yes. And what was the hardest scene to shoot?
The hardest scene to shoot was probably the finale. I wanted to make sure that was a oneer. We had practiced before. Unfortunately, our camera operator ended up injuring himself, so we had to teach someone on the day, brand new, this choreography. And high stakes, because if he's not in his position or a cheerleader's out of their position, people could be crashing into each other. So making sure we got that was definitely high stakes. I think that was take number 12. That was our 12th full out before we got it. That made it in.
Yes. And what do you hope people take away from this movie?
I hope people take away that cheerleaders are badass and they need to be respected for the athletes that they are. And that, young people and everybody, we're all struggling with our own mental health and our own vulnerabilities, and for everybody to just be a little bit more tender towards each other.
Yes, for sure. Well, it was amazing to talk to you. I hope to talk to you about future projects, the movie 13 and the musical Legally Blonde.
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you so much, and I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. Lovely to meet you.
Bye.
Bye.